Alright fellas, if you got to this video, it's probably because maybe you've done this to your truck and you're trying to figure out what to do, how bad is it, what happened. So that's why I really wanted to make this video, because this is something that I've done. And you know, I did the same exact thing. I went online, I went to YouTube, tried to figure out, you know, how much damage did I do to my truck? What sort of cost am I looking at to fix what I've done? Now, this is a 2005 Ford Excursion with this 6.0 liter diesel. I know some people are scared of the 6.0. My truck's actually been pretty good, knock on wood. It's an all-stock motor. So it could have been worse. So I'm going to preface it with this. I didn't fill up the gas tank entirely with gasoline, but I put a lot of gas in it. So let me explain. Getting ready to go into New York City, which is about an hour and 20 minutes away from where I live. And after the city, I had a client meeting out there. And after that meeting in the evening, I was going to drive up about another 5 hours to go upstate to visit my mother, who lives in upstate New York, okay? So I pull up to the gas station. It's a few miles away from my house. And I get out of the truck. I get a call from my boss right away. I pick up the phone, talk to him for a little bit, and automatically I just start putting gas into the truck. Now, my other cars, I put premium gas. So without thinking, I had the premium gas in there, pumping it in. I hang up the phone call, and I realize, oh no, I just put gas, premium gas, in the truck. So I stop immediately. Now, the Ford Excursion has a pretty big gas tank. It's a 40-gallon gas tank. And I maybe had about a quarter of a tank worth of gas in there, so about 10 gallons of diesel, rather, in the truck already. And I just put in 10 gallons of 93-octane premium gas into the truck. I was at a point where I didn't have a minute to spare because I had to get to the city. I was too far to drive it back to the house and like change out cars and do everything else that I would have to do. And I just really didn't have any options. Gonna mix together. Is the diesel going to float on top of the gas? Is the gas gonna float on top of the diesel? You know, knowing that the pickup tube and the fuel tank is gonna be on the bottom. You know, all that really didn't seem to matter. You know, the diesel looks like it will float for a little bit, but then they eventually all mix together, or, you know, vice versa, whatever it is. I'm at the same pump. It's one of those pumps where you have the diesel and you have the gas right next to each other, literally the same pump. So I put the gasoline pump back, took the diesel pump, and I said, you know what, I don't have a choice, I'm just gonna run it. So I filled the rest up with diesel gasoline. So I put about another 20 gallons of diesel into the gas tank. So it had about 10 gallons of diesel in there. I put 10 gallons of gasoline, 93 octane, and then I put another 20 gallons of diesel on top of that. 25% of the gas tank was gasoline. And what you've all seen, is that this is going to destroy your truck, okay? You have to drop the gas tank, drain the gas, blow out the lines, replace the fuel rail, replace the fuel filter, replace the injectors. Destroys your truck entirely. It can cost up to $8,000 in damages. Now, luckily, this wasn't my only vehicle. It's not a brand new truck. It is a, you know, I paid a lot of money for the truck, but it's not a brand new truck. And the client that I'm getting ready to meet with is coming down from Canada. It's a big deal. So I don't want to risk, you know, missing that. And worst case scenario, break down on the side of the road. I'm going to throw a little flag in the window, leave it on the side of the road, and take an Uber the rest of the way and deal with it, you know, afterwards. Called a buddy of mine, you know, he's the mechanic, he's seen this. He says, well, you know, we got a diesel plow truck, and in the winter we put 1 gallon of gasoline, you know, 87 gasoline in there, just to help it start in the winter. Now, one of the main things about the diesel, which can make it really destroy your motor, is that it wants to ignite, right? So with the diesel engine, there's no spark plug. It ignites under the pressure that it creates in the engine when the piston, you know, goes to the top of that bore, and then ignites it, and that expands, and that's how the diesel engine works, right? The gasoline, it wants to ignite before it gets to that point where the diesel will ignite, so you'd get what's called pre-ignition. And when you have that, it's bad because the piston still wants to go up to compress the diesel, but you have the gasoline mixture in there which wants to ignite, So it's fighting each other, and it could cause some really big problems. Essentially, it's bad for your fuel filter, it's bad for your injectors, bad for your gas lines, maybe your diesel lines, right? Bad for your engine, all these things. So I jumped back in the truck, turned the key, started right up, just like normal. Just like normal. Didn't skip a beat. So I figured, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive it really soft on the highway, just so I'm not agitating the diesel and the gas too much, and, you know, maybe the gas is floating to the surface and I'm just sucking in the diesel, and I'll deal with this later on. Let me just at least see if I can get to New York City. So I get to the city, driving it very carefully. You know, I got an ear out. I'm listening really carefully the whole way. Everything seems fine. Get to a parking garage, park the truck. I'm in the city for probably about 7 hours or so. It was a big day. And when I get back, I'm pretty much convinced that the truck isn't going to start, because at this point I'm thinking the gasoline fully mixed with the diesel, congealed or something like that, clogged everything up. Truck isn't going to start. But I get back to the parking garage, and the truck starts just fine. So I said, okay, next step, let me at least get out of New York City. The last place you want to be in having car trouble is New York City. Tight roads, tons of people everywhere. You can't go anywhere. There's no place for you to break down, no shoulders to speak of. It's bad enough that you're in a big truck like this where you can't maneuver. So I said, all right, let me at least get just outside of the city. So I do that, drive out of the city, go to the first gas station I get to. So this is my plan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep topping the fuel tank off, okay? So I get there. Now I've used about, you know, 7-8 gallons of diesel fuel at this point, or fuel in general, in the mixture. So I put more diesel in there and start driving, jump back on the highway. Everything sounds fine. So I say, all right, you know, I'm going to go up and continue on my journey. What I did now is every gas station on the way there, now, I mean, these are pretty long, you know, you're on these long highways once you get out of the city and you're heading upstate. So probably once every, you know, 30 miles, 50 miles or so, I would stop at the nearest, you know, the next gas station, the next rest stop, and I'd fill up with diesel fuel and just keep topping the tank off. And I have to tell you, with the 25% mixture of 93 octane in the fuel tank, I'm not saying this is what you should do, or this is a good recommendation, or you should take these same risks with your truck, but the truck absolutely loved it. You know, it really didn't skip a beat having the gasoline in there. And I know, you know, the diesel is an oil and the gasoline is more like a solvent, right? So it can damage all these things. It doesn't lubricate as well. All of these different things, which I completely understand, and it makes sense. But there was not a single issue. And here I am, I'm driving this truck right now. It's maybe about 20,000 miles since that has happened. Everything still works the same. Everything is perfect. I changed the fuel filter because you change the fuel filter in this truck every 10,000 miles if you have a 6.0. It's just what you do. So the fuel filter's been changed, nothing else has been changed, and it hasn't been an issue. I'm personally happy I didn't call up a tow shop to have it towed to the nearest, you know, mechanic, have the gas tank dropped, flush out all the lines, replace some of the under the hood lines, replace the fuel rail, replace the injectors. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? It could cost a lot of money. So I skipped all that. I took the risk. For me, it ended up paying off. Everything worked out just fine. Wasn't as catastrophic as the internet says. The internet pretty much says you destroyed your truck, don't drive it, you'll completely annihilate everything. And luckily for me, it just wasn't the case. So I really wanted to make this video to get my story out there, because I'm sure some of you are in similar positions, and you know, if I had filled it with 100% gasoline, that's a different story. You know, I certainly wouldn't drive it at that point. But there was still a lot of gasoline being 25% in the gas tank, that it's enough to make you, you know, really pretty nervous. And of course, it shouldn't be in there. I've never done it before then. I've never done it since then. Just one of those, you know, fluke things that happened. It was a mistake, but luckily it all worked out. Again, not that I recommend doing this, but if you find yourself in a similar position, maybe it's not quite as bad as the internet says. So good luck.